Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Pedro Martinez, the CEO of the Chicago Public Schools. As you know, we received the neutral fact finders report on Tuesday night. We appreciated and respect the thoroughness of the analysis. We also appreciate that the fact finder recognizes the dramatic stride the CPS is making. He specifically said, and this really brought a smile to my face, he said, CPS has an admirable record in the delivery of educational services. He also said in another direct quote, today, there can be no question that CPS is one of the top and most improved large urban school districts in the country. This isn't just a faint praise. It confirms our philosophy, our model, our strategies, and that they're all working for students. Because that's what the work is all about. This has always been about what is best for our students. As it relates to the negotiations, the main takeaways for us is that it confirmed the district's severe financial constraints. And we repeat that. As it relates to the negotiations, the main takeaway for us that it confirmed the district's severe financial constraints. This was consistent with another independent analysis performed last month by the Civic Federation. It is important to correct the record on this because some of the statements we saw yesterday about the report are simply not true. And I want to thank everyone who waited and actually read the report. Because on the very first item the fact finder considered, the COLAs, they confirm what we've been saying all along. According to the fact finder, CTU's COLA proposals, quote, exceeds the amount of cash available to cover it. Again, according to the fact finder, the CTU's COLA proposal, quote, exceeds the amount of cash that's available to cover it. That's a direct quote, page 8. Our financial reality is also reflected in many of the recommendations when it comes to our staffing. He praised our new educational model that allocates staff based more on student need than student enrollment. But he also said that the district needs flexibility to deal with potential funding shortfalls. In many cases, he agreed with our approach to maintain current staffing levels and said that the CTU failed to make the case to incur extra costs. To be fair, he did side with some CTU and with the CTU on some staffing measures, but in total, it was a few dozen additional staff, which pales in comparison to the thousands of additional staff members the union has been pushing for. All in all, we thought it was a very thoughtful and thorough analysis, and we had hoped it would be useful to help us to reach an agreement. So we're disappointed when CTU leadership unilaterally rejected it less than a day after we received the report, opening the door to a strike. That's the last thing that students and families need. And given how close our teams are to an agreement, we see no reason for such a drastic step. We will continue to come to the bargaining table in good faith and work towards a responsible agreement with the hopes of avoiding an unnecessary and harmful work stoppage. I'm just going to say a few words in Spanish, everyone. Recibimos el reporte del fact finder y lo que está diciendo el fact finder está en acuerdo con el distrito que no tenemos los fondos para dar todo lo que quiere el sindicato. Por ejemplo, ahorita nosotros estamos recomendando 4% de incrementos cada año por los próximos 4 años y el fact finder dijo directamente que no tenemos más dinero para dar más. Y también lo mismo con muchas de las recomendaciones que tuvo el sindicato para adicionar miembros del equipo. So I will just turn it over now to our Chief Talent Officer, Ben Fulton, to go into more detail on the compensation piece of the report.
Thank you, CEO. Can you all hear me? Great. Look, I saw some coverage yesterday about how this report suggests that we have more financial resources than we're letting on. The assertion that CPS is in the best financial position in its history and has more resources than it's admitting to is just simply a misrepresentation of the fact-finding report. I hope you all read it. Nowhere in the report does the fact finder suggest that CPS has some abundance of money available to meet all of CTU's staffing demands and salary demands. Our budget deficit is north of $750 million next year. Our chief budget officer said it is in the realm of doable for us to be able to close that. That's in the report. It's in the realm of doable for us to be able to close that deficit. So the idea that we just have, that this fact finder report is saying that we have just tons of flexibility to meet all of CTU's staffing demands just simply isn't true, and it's a misrepresentation of the report. We appreciate that the fact finders acknowledges the district's financial reality, especially when it comes to compensation. The report clearly states that CPS does not have the money to fund what CTU is asking for with cost of living adjustments. Instead, it recommends moving forward with the cost of living adjustments that we are offering at the district. This is the same offer that we've had on the table since September. I've come to this podium every week and told you we didn't want to nickel and dime our educators. We know they deserve a fair raise, but this is the same increase that we've been talking about since negotiations began. And let me be clear, this is the highest salary increase for CPS teachers in the last several cycles, in 14 plus years. If you look at the handout that we distributed to you today, previous contracts have reached a maximum yearly increase of 3.5%, even after teachers went out on strike. And those 3.5% were in a good year. Some of those years included multiple furlough days, increased healthcare costs for employees, and other drastic measures. And for 2 of those years, there was no salary increase at all. So by contrast, CPS began negotiations for this contract by guaranteeing our teachers a minimum of a 16% raise over the life of the agreement. Our teachers do an amazing job. I'm so proud to walk our schools all the time and pop into classrooms and see the incredible work that our teachers are doing. They deserve generous compensation increases, and we believe that we've met that bar. But as the fact finder's report clearly says, what's on the table right now is the most the district can afford without compromising student programming and putting the jobs of the existing staff that we have in peril. We can't do that to our staff. The fact finder also largely sided with the district when it comes to step increases in the contract. I've read coverage that says that they sided, that they sided with the union. That's just simply not true. This is critical. CTU proposed an additional $103 million additional dollars for additional step increases over the life of this agreement. That's their current proposal. We proposed $10 million. The fact finder recommended 20. So while the fact finder recommended more than we offered, it is still less than 20% of what CTU was even asking for. And it's less than 10% of what they originally asked for, nearly $250,000. So moving from our position at 10 to their position at 20 versus our position at 10 to their position, which is currently at 100 plus, started at nearly 250, $250 million. We think that, I just want to provide that context that's where the fact finder landed on step increases. So while this is more than CPS recommended, we are reviewing the rationale thoroughly. We're going to give this recommendation from the fact finder the consideration that it deserves. So again, it's important to note that the districts, that the fact finder went on and to show that that the district's proposals, especially around cost of living increases, which is the most expensive piece that's still on the table, he recommended the district's proposal, and we're pleased with that because we think it shows a real recognition of the district's finances. So I'll turn it over to my colleague, Miguel Peretta, our Chief Labor Relations Officer, to talk through a little bit more about the staffing proposals in the report.
All right, thank you, Ben. I want to start by thanking the fact finder for his comprehensive analysis and thoughtful recommendations. This report presents an opportunity for progress in our ongoing negotiations with CTU. It reflects a balanced approach that considers the needs of educators, students, and the long-term financial sustainability of our district. One key recommendation that we appreciate is maintaining our new equity-based staffing model. This model was implemented this school year to move us away from student-based budgeting and towards an approach where staff positions are allocated based primarily on student needs. There is zero disagreement between the parties on that topic. The fact finder acknowledged that the district's financial realities, while also emphasizing the importance of CPS maintaining flexibility, especially in the face of potential funding shortfalls, by recommending to adopt the CPS equity budget model. On specific staffing areas, the fact finder's report supports our commitment to protecting the 7,000 positions that we have added since 2019 and that have led our district's substantial academic gains. The report recommends adopting the CPS's proposals for a number of positions: technology coordinators, fine art teachers, counselors, and managers, noting that our proposals strike a reasonable balance. It also found that some of the union proposals could negatively impact our school hiring or lacked sufficient justification for going above what CPS has proposed. At the same time, the fact finder did recommend adopting CTU's proposals on librarians and family engagement coordinators and suggested a middle ground on the outstanding issues in our ELPT proposals. Overall, this report highlights how close we are at bargaining, and in fact, it validates the reasonableness of our position on many of the issues. Again, we will take the time to thoroughly review the recommendations and analyze their financial impact, and we remain committed to bargaining in good faith with the CTU and building upon the progress that we have made thus far. The fact finder's report brings us closer to resolving key issues, and we are focused on using this momentum to reach a fair and responsible tentative agreement that supports our educators, students, and our schools. Our goal is to finalize an agreement that reflects our shared commitment to equity, academic excellence, and the long-term success of our district. I'll now turn it over to our CEO.
Thank you, Miguel. Before we go to Q&A, I want to respond to something we've been hearing. There seems to be a line of thinking that every time there's a contract negotiation, which was 2012, 2016, 2019, CPS says that we can't afford it. But once there's an agreement, we somehow magically figure out, and all this money comes down and we figure out how to pay for it. Here's the truth. The way we've been able to afford these agreements was because we spent months and months negotiating until we got something to the realm of possibility. And sometimes not even enough. For example, in the mid-2010, we had years with no COLAs at all. We had years with multiple furlough days. And in the 2019 contract, if we didn't have the pandemic and the funding that came with it, we would have had to do furlough days. We would have had to cut programs and even have done layoffs. So keep in mind that CTU started the negotiation with asking for 9% COLAs, close to 14,000 new staff, and $10 billion with a B in additional spending. I'm happy that they brought those demands down. It took till December, but they brought them down. We told them this wasn't affordable. They came back with 6% COLAs, and right now they still are requesting 5,000 new staff. We also have told them that this is unaffordable. In fact, we told them from the beginning that what we could afford, which is, as our talent officer said, 4% raises, the highest we've ever done, and we have agreed to some additional staffing that is very, very basic and that is based on need and is very reasonable. So, as we stand here 10 months later, we're close on a deal with 4% COLAs and a minimal increase in staff in a few critical areas. We still have some concerns about our ability to afford this contract, which is why we have been so steadfast about our position. I hope we can resolve this once and for all, and I want us to really make sure that we continue to negotiate in good faith and not even consider any kind of work stoppage. So in that spirit, we'll continue to be at the bargaining table every single day, and with that, we'll take some questions.
Operating on, and if so, can you lay out that ground?
Yeah, so in simple math, we shared with you. So we have, and the fact finder, by the way, is very clear about this year's numbers. He was very specific. He actually called out the additional TIF money that would be part of a budget amendment, $139 million. That is enough to pay for the year one costs. So he was very clear about that. Of course, it's not enough for anything else, but it's enough to cover the CTU contract costs and what we think we would get with the CPA contract. So that was clear. Next year, we've said that if you take the 4% COLAs, our deficit would go from 500 million to about 750. We are advocating, if TIFs, again, did not exist today, CPS would be receiving 600 million every single year. Again, let me repeat that. If TIFs had been allowed to expire when they were required to be expired, we would be receiving $600 million every single year. That is still our request that we're making to the city. So that would bring our deficit down closer to 150. And so, again, not that 150 is easy, but again, as a district our size, we also have to find efficiencies, and that would be our commitment to find those efficiencies.
Usually the school district accepts or rejects the fact finder. Are you guys not ready to do that, or where are you guys on that?
Yeah, actually, we didn't even have the opportunity to either accept or reject. One of the things is the CTU rejected the proposal without really kind of engaging in conversations with us as to whether these recommendations would be reasonable to, land, ultimately a deal. So we were not given that chance.
I know that you're confident, you've said it a number of times, you don't think there's gonna be a strike. But where are you now with that, after they've rejected this, and it seems to me you're very far apart in how you've interpreted this report?
Even more today, Sarah. I'm even more convinced. Again, what are our teachers going to strike about? This gives us, what we were hoping for in this fact finder report was to give an objective perspective. To just say, because, right, there's been, even you guys have said, we don't know who to trust. We don't know who's telling, you guys say one thing, they say another. This is an objective person who has no interest in, in fact, the way I read the report was he saw how close we were. And he's like, okay, maybe for the first time, I can actually produce a report that both parties will agree. And that's what he was trying to do. And God bless him. I mean, because he saw how close we were. And so, more convinced than ever, Sarah, there is nothing to justify a strike. We are so close on the COLAs. Again, this is what we have. These steps, again, I think it's important that we do look at our tenured teachers. And we've added, we're adding staffing in a few select places based on need. So the other last two strikes, from the beginning, a lot of contention, a lot of hostility from the very beginning. Our team in this process, and I'm not saying that was right or wrong, by the way, I wasn't here, so I can't explain to you why it was that way. But in this process, my team has come to the table every day in good faith. They've listened to our staff. Even when we couldn't agree on the proposals, we explained either why or we gave a counter proposal that was addressing the actual issue. That is why I just don't see it.
You mentioned some hope that the report itself would spur some momentum at the bargaining table, and actually the CTU leaders said something along the same lines, even though their interpretation of the report was different. You were at the bargaining table, some of you guys were at the bargaining table today. Did you see any indication of that? Was the dynamic at the table and the tenor of the discussion different in some ways because this report is out now?
Today we had a pre-planned agenda to talk about our clinicians. So we didn't get a good chance to kind of spend time to kind of talking about it, but we did end with, they did ask kind of what our thoughts were. Kind of we engaged in small conversations with respect to what their thoughts were. And I think what we shared is, we think this provides an opportunity for both parties to come closer to reaching an ultimate, a tentative agreement here. We, also acknowledging there's a number of things that the fact finder remanded back to the parties to continue to negotiate. So, I think we also need to be mindful that, there's still a couple other priorities that the fact finder has not addressed. But I think in terms of compensation, in terms of staffing, I think it provides a real opportunity to get closer on that and ultimately close out some of those priorities.
What about the teacher evaluations? It seems to be a real sticking point for the union.
So we know that in order for our teachers to be as effective as possible for their students, they need a strong teacher evaluation system, both to hold every adult in this system accountable, but then also for the opportunity to make sure that teachers are getting the types of supports and pre-conversations and post-conversations and debriefs and actually written feedback that they deserve. Any professional gets better when they get that written feedback. There's a couple of different issues. We've made a lot of progress on a lot of the teacher evaluation pieces, specifically expanding supports for teachers who work in the highest need communities. They get, we've committed to additional mentoring for teachers who are struggling, who work in those communities based on their evaluation score, additional due process steps for teachers who are teaching in the highest need communities. The biggest sticking point right now, frankly, is that CTU wants the overwhelming majority of their teachers of their tenured teachers to be evaluated every 3 years, and we don't think that that's a sufficient amount of evaluation. That teachers need more regular feedback. They need, which includes written feedback in part of a summative evaluation. Look, our team is evaluated every year. And we hold ourselves accountable in that way. And it's a really good opportunity for us to get additional support. So I think we've made good progress. We've also conceded that those teachers in our system who have the highest evaluation scores can move to a 3-year evaluation program. That's a significant concession from CPS. We are concerned about the overwhelming majority of our teachers being evaluated only every 3 years, so that continues to be a sticking point at the table for us.
The other issue that is still outstanding is elementary school planning time, and I know last week you guys sent out something to teachers, to staffs, outlining your proposals, and included that, and from just like Facebook and those places where teachers respond, there's a lot of people who are very incredulous at the idea of 10 minutes of extra planning time, and I'm just wondering, where can you guys go from here? Because I feel like that's still an issue that is unresolved.
Go ahead.
These are still ongoing conversations with CTU around the elementary school day. We had discussions, including as recently as the last few days. We discussed the 10-minute proposal because this is the maximum time that we as a district will agree to convert during the regular student day. We have discussions for what else is possible to expand opportunities for planning time for teachers, but these are ongoing discussions. We have not reached an agreement on that.
And again, just a reminder, our teachers in Chicago get the most planning time of any large urban district in the country. Again, doesn't mean that it isn't justified for us to try to increase more. I want to continue to be the leader, but I just want to make sure that context is clear.
And let me just say on this front too, as the parent of 2 small children in this system, I'm very concerned about my kids getting less instructional time with their teacher. We've tried for months to come up with creative solutions to ensure that teachers have the planning time that they need to plan rigorous and effective lessons. As a former teacher myself, I know that that's a critical part of the job, but the line in the sand for us has been that we will not accept our students who are still coming out of the pandemic in their academic recovery getting less instructional time from their licensed teacher. And so that continues to be the challenge at the table.
I have one other question. You had referenced the Civic Federation report that they did, and I'm wondering, the one that was released in January, did you guys ask for that report to be done, or how did that come to be?
So what I believe, Sarah, and our CFO is not here, so we can confirm this, but they were getting questions. I don't know if it was from CTU or others. They were getting questions about our reserves, and so they decided to just provide more information. That was what I heard directly from the leader.
So the Civic Federation did it on their own without CPS urging them to do it?
Because they were, like I said, I can't talk for our CFO or chief of budget, but what he told me was they were just getting they were getting questions and they wanted to make sure it was clear.
I understand there's a cooling off period that's going into place. Can you talk about, are there going to be any conversations happening to try to reach a deal during that time?
Yeah, definitely. So right now, now that CTU has given notice that they rejected the report, basically they're not able to statutorily strike for the next 30 days. So within those 30 days, they can announce a strike date, a future strike date. I can share that they haven't communicated that they're choosing to go down that route, which obviously gives us hope that we're in fact close to reaching a tentative agreement, right, on the various things. And I'm just going to add on regarding the elementary school question. Our teachers contractually provide instruction up to 300 minutes per day. So just do the simple math. If we were to add additional 20 minutes of planning time, then that would require us to go from 300 minutes of instruction per day down to 280. Do the math. It's almost 10 plus days worth of loss of instruction. So that's just kind of provide a little context in terms of some of the conversations that we're having, finding a balance to give teachers more planning time, which we agree they deserve and it's beneficial, but also kind of the impact on the instructional day and overall the instructional year. So hopefully that helps.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.